is the year 2472, and the Earth has suffered a great calamity. Hundreds of years of popular culture have vanished. Without the sacred films and texts for guidance, civilization is devoid of anything cool. Then, 3 incubation chambers are unearthed, and from within, men from the time of the great blockbusters emerge. Now, through highly interesting conversations, they share invaluable insight about what once was. The movies, the shows, the comics, toys, and books. This is the Hyperspace.
Podcasting in the 25th century.
Welcome in, podcasting pioneers, to the Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century. I'm Matt.
I'm Jared.
And I'm Mike.
Guys, you know what I noticed about the 25th century so far?
Lots of stuff.
I mean, aside from the fact that everything outside looks like gentleman Broncos.
What's that, Matt?
Everything is serene and peaceful. Not a lot of evil villains around.
No, you know, there is a distinct lack of villainy in the 25th century. Some people would think that's some people would think that's good, but really, is it?
It's peaceful, it's nice, but it lacks a little color that way.
I agree.
I think one of the things that we need to bring to the 25th century is a little education about some of the biggest, baddest villains in movie and TV history.
I think that's a great idea. Mike, are you on board with this?
I don't know. They're very tepid people. I'd hate to, introduce nightmares into their society. What if we're the ones who become responsible for creating villains, you know? Is that a burden we're ready to...
Well, to be fair, sometimes a forest can't grow any bigger until you burn it to the ground.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Mike, but I'm willing to roll the dice on that. Because, Listen, if I have to walk by another quasi-futuristic dressed, jumpsuited person who doesn't know who General Zod is, I'm going to lose it.
Which is ironic because they kind of look like General Zod, only with silver outfits.
Only with silver clothing. Yeah, I know. It's really crazy.
And what's up with the round bib things around their neck? I never understood
I don't know. I think that's maybe to catch food or something. But they just eat paste from a tube, so I don't understand. So take this opportunity to thank a lot of people who've been giving us some great feedback on the show, and people come back week after week and saying a lot of nice things, and really appreciate that. You know, guys, I had the chance to talk to one of our listeners named Brandon, and he brought up something that made me think a little bit. He's like, you guys talk about these things from 30 years ago, 35 years ago, like they happened to you yesterday. Like how, he goes, I can't remember, 2 weeks ago. So what's our secret? I mean, he told me, he's like, yeah, I mean, I like Ninja Turtles and stuff. He's a 90s kid, Brandon. But he's like, I can't tell you when I bought my first Ninja Turtle and everything. And you guys are talking about losing Darth Vader in the ocean and, Boba Fett. And
I'm just going to speak for myself, but growing up in the 70s and 80s, we didn't have any cell phones. We didn't have any kind of gadget distractions in that regard. What we played with, we left behind when we left that room. And in the 90s even, they had the Game Boy came out, and the Game Boy was that first portable, take it with you kind of thing, and it kind of never left anybody's hand when you think about it. It went straight from the Game Boy to the cell phone. Yeah. And from the cell phone to the laptop. I mean, it always came with them after that. But before that, it was just, you played with it and you put it down and you moved on with your life.
I think so. I think our exposure to screens back then, being TV, was limited by our parents. And what we did see that clicked with us, I think really left a mark.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, well, I mean, we didn't have that much to watch. And True. When you did encounter it, it was by either appointment or by chance. So it certainly wasn't the deluge of entertainment available at the hands of people today.
Yeah.
Well, my parents made me stay in the basement in the dark. So anytime that they let me emerge from downstairs and a toy found its way into my hand, I mean, that's the kind of thing you remember.
You weren't collecting teeth, were you?
Forget stuff like that. Not mine.
That's an Afraid of the Dark reference for you people who've never seen it.
Well, anyway, I thought it was interesting. And, our spouses have also marveled at our ability to recall these, trivial things. Some would say trivial things, but I don't know. I think maybe that's why we're special, guys.
Gentlemen, that's why we may be anomalies in this world, in this universe.
Maybe that's why we were granted the incubation chambers.
Oh, I thought it was because of the incident.
Oh, I don't know. We'll talk about the incident some other time. But, we did survive the Great Calamity. We emerged from the incubation chambers, and there's more story to tell there. But
guys, we shouldn't wait any longer.
we got a big topic this week.
The cloud is rolling in. It's getting dark in the 25th century, guys.
It's getting dark. I think it's time for a little Scum and Villainy. Today on the podcast, we're going to get evil. We're going dark. We're going to talk about some bad people, some of our favorite bad people. We're talking about villains from television and movies that we really like.
Well, you don't have a good guy unless you have a good bad guy.
That's what they say.
And we're going to list some of those bad guys that we think are top notch.
To even bring you guys a list of our favorite villains is tough. There's so many good ones out there. Movies, TV that we grew up with that we're still watching. There's so many good characters out there. I mean, it's hard to even begin, but we've got a pretty good list for you today. We're going to kick it off in no particular order. I'm going to throw one out there. How about something more recent?
Okay.
From one of our favorite shows, Lost, Benjamin Linus.
Your plan killed 7 of my people. But the ones that you failed to kill are now holding your friends. Jin, Saeed, Bernard. At gunpoint.
Just don't give him any clue. Stop! Leave him alone! I said shut up!
And what's to stop me from snapping your neck?
Tom, unless you hear my voice, in 1 minute, shoot all 3 of them.
Good.
It's 20 seconds now. Just get me the phone, Jack. No. 10 seconds. Bring me the phone.
No.
I'm not bluffing.
I won't do it!
4, 3.
No.
Benjamin Linus was one of those TV characters that was so creepy and so well written, and you never really could tell what position and what side he was playing. He was such a great, great character.
I remember when he was introduced on the show, he was posing as a person who had crashed in a hot air balloon onto the island. And his name was Henry Gale.
That's right.
Which is Dorothy's uncle from The Wizard of Oz, by the way. And they held him captive in the hatch, and they weren't really sure, nor was the audience, what was going on with this guy. Like, was he on the up and up? And then when it was finally revealed, he wasn't. It was just the entire thing was brilliantly done.
Benjamin Linus from the very start was a mystery. You didn't know who he was. You didn't know what he wanted to do. You don't know what his motives were. You don't know who he's working with, who he's working for, who was working for him. He was the enigma of the island. In fact, he was as much of an enigma on that island as the island itself. And Benjamin just got his claws into every piece of everyone on that island. And everyone hated him, but you needed him, or you hated, or you wanted to kill him, or you wanted to punch his face in like Jack.
When he beat the crap out of him, it was just a bloody mess.
One of the best scenes in Lost. But he always kept it going. And episodes that were rich with Benjamin Linus were always the best ones, in my opinion. You always wanted more of him. And that actor,
Michael Emerson,
he couldn't have been cast better. So I got to give my hats off to Lost and to Benjamin Linus. He definitely deserves his place as one of TV's and entertainment's best villains, in my opinion.
I agree. I think the way Emerson played him was, he left you wondering, like, could this guy be okay? Maybe he's all right. But then he does something and he's definitely not okay.
Yeah.
And they played that game with you through the whole show. You're like, oh man, I'm going to give Ben another chance because it seems like he's doing the right thing. And then, of course, it goes south. But it kept you guessing up until almost the very end of the show.
Well, mark of any great villain is that kind of multi-dimensional depth. He's just not straight evil, and he's not really good, but there's something in there that's motivating him, and the more you learn about him, the more you're interested in him. And to me, the villains that have that kind of depth are always the best characters in general versus heroes and villains in general. Villains with that kind of story are always the most interesting in any movie, even more so than the heroes, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. He's a lot of people when they talk about Lost, they say, well, it really fell off in the second season. And I mean, I couldn't disagree more. I mean, I thought all the stuff with the hatch was great. And the way they introduce him, you really are like, Saeed's like the only one who's like, nope, he's a bad guy. And
yeah, Saeed saw through it immediately.
But my favorite thing was when they had that first moment with him, when he's sitting, they let him out of the room, and he's eating cereal.
Yes.
He's talking to Jack and John, and he just does this whole like, well, if I was one of them, what I would do is I'd send some of your people out to a location and like basically into a trap. And then that's how that episode ended. And I think the last line was like, do you have any milk or something?
You guys got any milk?
You guys got any milk?
So and that's like your first taste of like the manipulation, the games that he played.
Oh man, he got into John Locke's head right away.
And he was one of those characters you always kind of wanted to like, but I mean, he sacrificed his daughter. But I mean, the one thing that you can say about him is he was completely devoted to the island. And one of my another favorite moment is in the last season when he's talking to Jacob. And he goes, what about me? And I love Jacob just goes, what about you?
Yeah.
It's like, poor guy,
Like he could never catch a break.
What about me?
What about you?
Yeah, all that for nothing.
And I think he became...
His dad was a jerk.
Yeah, oh yeah, he was. At the end, I think he got some measure of redemption as like Hurley's number 2.
Yeah.
So would be interesting to catch up with Benjamin someday and see if he's stabbed Hurley in the back and killed him and then taken over the island again. I don't know. But yeah, Benjamin Linus is a good choice.
Thank you. All right, who's next?
Go ahead, Jared. Go.
I'm going to say one of the people on my list is Biff Tannen.
I can't believe you loaned me your car without telling me it had a blind spot. I could have been killed.
Now, Biff, I never noticed that the car had any blind spot before when I would drive it. Hi, son.
But what are you, blind, McFly? It's there. How else do you explain that wreck out there?
Now, Biff, can I assume that your insurance is going to pay for the damage?
My insurance. It's your car. Your insurance should pay for it. I want to know who's going to pay for this. I spilled beer all over when that car smashed into me. Who's going to pay my cleaning bill?
He's not some Machiavellian monster. He doesn't try to rule the galaxy. He's not trying to commit mass genocide, but he's just a great jerk.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting him. He's just a jerk.
The first Back to the Future, he's like a linchpin on, Marty McFly's very existence. And, if Biff had his way, Marty would have just faded into nothingness there at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance. But, it didn't quite work out that way. But he's well played by Thomas F. Wilson. He definitely was physically imposing, but also kind of goofy and like a gorilla or something. And, very funny, too. He had a lot of great lines. He had a lot to do in that series of movies with the evil Biff from 1985 who ran the hotel and casino and took over Hill Valley. Then, not the same character, but Buford Mad Dog Tannen.
He had a long history of
if you think about it, that actor really lucked out with that role because he really just got to do... He played his like ancestor, like
yes.
No, I guess it would have been his grandson or his son.
No, he played his great grandfather, Buford Mad Dog Tannen, and then he played his grandson, Griff.
Right, that's right.
Part 2, and he's always constantly messing up sayings like. That's about as funny as a screen door on a battleship, or make like a tree and get out of here.
But or, Biff Tannen as a bully, he wasn't entirely one-dimensional in that movie. He was pretty close to it, but he just wasn't the outraged bully. They gave him a little bit of backstory. You could tell that he was living with his grandmother. Maybe his parents aren't in the picture. His grandmother seemed to be a little bit of a angry, abusive type. So, you know, Biff Tannen looked like he came from a troubled home himself, and he has that kind of bully archetype in him that made him into this. So they gave him a little bit of backstory for you to kind of see where he's coming from.
Sure.
So he's not entirely one-dimensional, and that's what actually made Biff in that first movie, forget the other two, a pretty rich character.
Yeah, and you know, it proves the adage, you know, George McFly punched him in the nose and changed the course of history.
Punch her.
And if you think about it, well, you know what? If you just take the first one into context, he did attempt to rape.
Oh yeah, I mean
Marty's mom.
I don't know if a lot of Matt's good characteristics really, because he was definitely there was some.
Never said he was a good guy. I'm just saying you could. I'm saying you could see what sent him down the path. I'm not saying he was a good guy. I don't know if Biff ever had a redemption moment in his
not
lineage.
In those movies.
No, you know he could. I mean, he could wax a car like nobody's business.
Yeah, but you know, Biff was always that hair trigger where he was always on the edge to go back and fall into the abyss of being just Biff.
You saw that, you know. I mean, it played out in the alternate 1985. He still got punched in the nose by George, but that was the Biff whose anger simmered and he got his revenge. So, it was always there in him.
Never left. Great character. Good villain.
Definitely a good pick. I
Mike?
like Biff. I'm going to start out with one of my probably lesser known ones or less obvious ones is a villain I always liked was the Scorpio Killer in Dirty Harry.
Yeah, I remember him.
Man, that guy was just repulsive.
He had like red hair, right? Like curly red hair.
I mean, he was just a bad guy, but the way...
I got to revisit him. I got to look at a picture. Hold on. Let me see this guy.
Yeah, pull it up.
Andy Robinson.
Oh, man, yes. Look at this guy.
He was just so nasty.
Sir, excuse me, sir. Are you claiming that the San Francisco police did this to you?
I swear it, as God is my judge.
Why would they do that, sir? Why? Why are they harassing you?
I don't know. They tried to frame me with a Deacon girl murder, and now they're trying to murder me. And look at me. Just look at me. I'm supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, and just look at what they did to me. Everywhere I go, cops follow me, and just look at me.
Just a minute, nurse, please. Let me ask you one more question. Sir, did you see the man that did this to you?
Yes, I did.
Can you identify him?
Yes, his name is Callahan. He's a big cop. Worst homicide. Callahan.
One of my favorite moments is when Dirty Harry captures him like the first time, and he's basically just because he's bullied Harry by making him run all over the city, and so Harry finally has him on the ground, and he's shot him. And he just turns into this sniveling little baby where he's going, I got my rights. And it's just, I mean, you just hate him so much. And when he's on the school bus with the kids, it's like he makes your skin crawl that he's around children, and the way he starts bullying the children. I think the very end of Dirty Harry when he gets his is very, very satisfying. I mean, he's just a nasty dude. He was played very well.
One of my favorite lines in the movie, man, you really want $300 worth, don't you?
Oh, yeah. That one's on the house.
He pays some African-American people to beat him senseless.
It's one guy.
Because he wants to pretend that Dirty Harry gave him this beating. So he goes down there and... You know, he's using some inflammatory language to this gentleman, and he's like, boy, you really want $300 worth, don't you?
And the guy punches him one last time and tells him it's on the house.
And he turns his
that guy hates him so much.
He turns his face into clay.
This one's on the house.
I know, it's ridiculous. It's unsettling and terrible.
You know, that might have been one of the first times where Mike really was affected by punches on screen.
It could be. It could be.
Yeah, Mike.
But anyway, it's a great movie.
Well, you know,
great protagonist.
Clint Eastwood
villain.
Clint Eastwood movies are solid even to this day. I think if you see a Clint Eastwood movie, except maybe Bridges over Madison County, you're gonna love them. And if you haven't gone and seen the Dirty Harry movies, if this is kind of new to you, they're great old movies. Go watch a Clint Eastwood movie. Go watch an old Western with Clint Eastwood. Go watch
his
the spaghetti westerns with Clint Eastwood. But definitely get out there and check out Dirty Harry. It's one of those movies that you're going to love. You're going to like it. It's fun. It's a little dated, but it's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, you got to watch it.
Good.
Well, yeah, I think it's like the perfect 70s movie. It just has that look from the dirty 70s. I always thought the 70s were just dirty.
That's a good way of saying it. It's like the dirty
like yellow.
70s.
They're like yellow and brown.
Everyone
everywhere.
was passing VD to each other. I mean, it's just a dirty...
I was wearing wool suits for no reason.
Yeah. Pant loads of venereal disease.
Anyway.
That 44 Magnum was shooting syphilis at him.
Oh, boy. Okay, Matt, your turn.
All right, I'm going to take it back to a TV villain again. Though to call it a villain, it might be a little misnomer. It's more like a collective of villains.
I am Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile. Your life, as it has been, is over. From this time forward, you will service us.
The Borg from Star Trek The Next Generation was one of the scariest, neatest, most original TV villains I thought that I'd ever seen. And to this day, I think that they were really, really well portrayed. Such a neat kind of entity that was such a specter coming at our heroes in Star Trek. Star Trek The Next Generation had, oh my God, so many different episodes and so many different villains and plots and stuff. But the one that I always looked forward to was one where the Borg were involved. When you first encountered the Borg, it was creepy and it was intimidating to watch that as a kid. That was an amazing villain with the cube coming at them, where Q just kind of gave them a glimpse at what is nasty in the universe, thinking that they're prepared for everything, and they realized they weren't. And then, of course, later when the Borg started to invade Federation space, and you led to a great cliffhanger on the best of both worlds between seasons.
I believe it was seasons 3 and 4.
Right, where Picard is abducted by the Borg and becomes Locutus of the Borg, where they needed a leader. And it led to one, in my opinion, the best cliffhanger of that entire show was when Riker decided to open fire on the Borg.
Mr. Worf. Fire.
But the Borg as a enemy was so neat, and it was so unworldly and so creepy, what they were and what they could become and what they could do to you, that it always kind of stuck with me. It's like, that's a great TV villain.
Yeah, I like the Borg. I think one of the things that I think really makes them creepy is that at times our heroes would be just kind of walking among them, and the Borg would just walk by them. Right. You know, like, as long as you're not bothering me, I'm not going to bother you. But that was always really creepy to me, that they could sort of interact with them, but then things go south, and then, you know, the Borg, they're surrounded by Borg, and they just turn on them and do their worst.
You know, it's really the whole, almost the zombie kind of apocalypse in space is what it is to me. Yeah. They're just, they just become slaves of the hive mind, and they just become part of that, and they're no longer the person and no longer human. They're Borg, and it's like zombies coming at you. You're just battling robot cyborg zombies.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say I was a little late to the party on the Borg. I wasn't really didn't watch a lot of Next Generation, but I had seen the episode where Geordi found the one and started to humanize him. I thought that was actually a pretty good episode at the time I watched it. But then, a few years ago, it was right before Star Trek Into Darkness came out. Jared will remember this. I went back and watched all the original Star Trek TV shows. And then I watched the movies. And then I wanted to watch First Contact, so I bought the Borg DVD set, Borg collection, that has the noteworthy Borg episodes in it. Mm-hmm. And that was like my first exposure to their stories. Like, they are, I mean, it's a really interesting idea of how, you know, you get absorbed. I mean, you know, it could be like a metaphor for any type of negative society in our world today without getting political. I think the one thing I found, the creepiest thing in any of the Borg stories was when they did the backstory for, who was it on Voyager? What was her name?
7 of 9.
When it was her parents were watching the Borg in like a ship, but they were off in the distance and they were just observing. Like her father was like a scientist or something like that. And then of course eventually they take the ship and that's how they got her. And I always thought, man, that's so dumb to have your family. But it was like a really good idea, I thought, because I could see some stupid like scientist doing something like that to his family. But anyway, I guess that's a really long way of going about saying. But yeah, I agree. The Borg are pretty cool.
Hey, space zombies. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, and they got a little facelift for First Contact.
Yeah.
And you know what?
In fact, if you go back and watch them on the original episodes, they do they look early cosplayers.
I know it's like black tights with some plastic.
Clunky.
Yeah, but it worked, and it was pretty effective. So good choice, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, so mine, Lord Humongous from Mad Max 2, a.k.a. The Road Warrior.
There has been too much violence, too much pain. None here without sin. But I have an honorable compromise. Just walk away. Give me a pump, the oil, the gasoline, and the whole compound, and I spare you lives. Just walk away. I will give you safe passage in the wasteland. Just walk away, and there will be an end to the horror.
First of all, you look at him, he screams bad guy. You know, you're never going to confuse him with the good guy.
He's never a hero.
With that metal hockey mask and the bodybuilder physique. I love the fact that he has a microphone when he talks. Like he's hooked up to a sound system. But my favorite thing about him, he's surrounded by a bunch of maniacs. And he's like the calm in the storm. But he doesn't look like he should be the calm one. He looks like he should be as crazy as the rest of them. But I love it when he's trying to talk to the people in the camp. He's like reasoning with them. He's just like, hey, come on, guys. I mean, look, just leave. I mean, we're gonna get in there anyway. Spare yourself the death. You know, just leave. And,
he's a reasonable guy.
He's reasoning with them. He's just. I mean, he's got that great gun. I love the intro. The guy. That's the clip we should play.
Greetings from the Humongous, the Lord Humongous, the warrior of the wasteland, the Ayatollah of rock and roller.
He's got that great setup. He's a pure comic book character in a great movie, and he's got the pulsating Telosian head, I guess, with the veins.
When I was a kid, I saw Thunderdome first, then I saw Road Warrior, and I saw Mad Max. I saw it completely backwards. But I was young, like when Thunderdome came out. What year was that? 1985.
85.
All right, 85.
Beyond
right.
Thunderdome.
So I was 10 when Thunderdome came out. So I probably didn't see Thunderdome until I was about like 11. So I didn't see any of the Mad Max movies. I just saw them later on. And I did see them in the Thunderdome, and I went complete reverse. Road Warrior and then Mad Max. And to me, Road Warrior was my favorite of that trilogy. Road Warrior was awesome. Road Warrior was super fun. It's interesting. Like there were things that happened in Road Warrior that they didn't acknowledge in Thunderdome, like the guy with the helicopter. Do you think that Mad Max would remember him or know him?
I think he was a different person. He was a different person. It was just a
different person with a helicopter and could fly.
Well, that's it. They did that on Star Trek all the time. They'd cast the same actor with different roles. But yeah, you're right. It is a little strange to carry. We're gonna cast you as a different character, but you're basically the same character.
But Road Warrior was great, and Lord Humongous was over the top. He was.
By the way, that the gyro captain was the Mouth of Sauron. I don't know if you knew that.
Bruce Spence.
Bruce Spence.
The Mouth of Sauron.
Yes, of course he was, and that was a great role.
He was also in
Too bad it got cut. But Road Warrior was cool, and Lord Humongous, you said it best, he's a total comic book character that they put on celluloid, and everything he did was out of a comic book. There was nothing human about the guy.
He had a great death scene himself.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the gun. What gun did he have?
I don't know what type it was. It was a big, gigantic gun.
I gotta look up his gun.
He had a case for it, and he would take it out of the case and load it.
Oh,
you just knew that this thing was just deadly.
Yeah, he was the true leader of the Apocalypse Misfits.
Played by Kjell Nilsson, a Swedish weightlifter and actor.
Nice, well done.
He's still alive. He's still alive.
And glad to see that Mad Max has made such a strong return. I really am crossing my fingers that I'm going to get to see some more Mad Max movies, because Fury Road tops out as one of my top favorite movies of the last 10 years. I think Fury Road was unbelievable. I had low expectations for Fury Road, by the way, and it came out and just punched me right in the face.
The world is a better place because of Fury Road.
And I agree.
All right. It's your turn, Jared.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about Terrence Stamp's General Zod.
You are the one they call president?
I am.
I see you are practiced in worshipping things that fly. Good. Rise before Zod. Now, kneel before Zod. Oh, God. Zod.
All right, so that's General Zod, as played by Terrence Stamp. I think Terrence Stamp's Zod, since I was a kid, he has been one of those, when I think of a bad guy, I think of a few people, and he is up there. You know, with the black disco suit and the goatee and the complete arrogance and confidence of the character, the way he talks to people. I mean, it's iconic. He is the only Zod as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I remember watching Superman 2 as a kid, and yeah, Zod definitely stands out as like a very like scary person. But I also think that your introduction to him in Superman with when they're just talking about their crimes,
the Phantom Zone coming down.
Well, right before that happens, like the description of each one of them, and it's really like, ugh, these people are kind of terrible.
Guilty.
And then when the Phantom Zone comes and takes them away, and then their first appearance in Superman 2 is where they basically kill those astronauts.
Yes.
I mean, that's like pretty brutal, especially the one guy that's like basically crying out for help.
Come on, Houston! Oh, no! Somebody help me!
As they're smashing his ship.
Yeah, he's in the lunar module and they're crushing him.
Yeah.
Like, oh, come on.
But he's a great foil for Superman.
Yeah, he is.
But that's another one where they get the comeuppance, and that's like a great cheer moment.
Oh yeah, with no doubt.
General Zod, the Phantom Zone, I remember when I was a kid was pretty scary. I remember when they were placed in the Phantom Zone in the first movie. That disturbed me. That bothered me a little bit.
Yeah, it's all like two-dimensional and flat.
I mean, as a young kid watching Superman, it was a little disturbing to watch, and you're like, what is going on? and Superman 2 was a great follow-up sequel. What a great movie it was.
Yeah,
and
I think when I was a kid, Superman 2, I actually preferred that to the first.
Oh yeah,
I did
just
too.
because it was more of like an action-adventure film.
Yeah.
I mean,
but then
I
you
see
grow up.
You see the cracks in the foundation. When
It's so campy now when you watch it, but it's.
But I still enjoy it.
Yeah, and Gene Hackman, of course, as Lex Luthor. Another great villain. Didn't make the list today, but another great villain.
No, wait,
and
that's an honorable mention.
It is an honorable mention.
He has to go in there.
The next time we will kill him.
The next time? The next time? What am I going to do with you people, huh? I held up my end. I delivered to the Blue Boy. What do I get for my triple threat? Bow, yield, kneel. That kind of stuff closes out of town.
Why do you say this to me when you know I will kill you for it?
You know, I've always said about Gene Hackman that Gene Hackman brings credibility to any movie he's in. And I think Terrence Stamp also fits into that criteria, where if you see Terrence Stamp in a movie, every performance that Terrence Stamp gives is awesome. And I think Terrence Stamp as Zod in that movie gave it a lot of credibility and a lot of watchability, because I think I couldn't picture anybody else being Zod except Terrence Stamp. And even in the reboot of Superman, your brain, at least if you grew up with Superman 2, your brain goes back to Terrence Stamp as Zod.
Yes.
So that's always Zod for me. So yeah, he brought a lot of strong acting to that role. So General Zod was great. Pretty one-dimensional, pretty driven to be just an evil bad guy, but satisfying at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And absolutely quotable. I mean, kneel before Zod. Everybody knows what that is, even if they have no idea what it is.
Kneel before Zod!
So
good choice. John Zod.
Mike, what do you got coming up?
All right, well, I'm going to go a little darker here.
Oh, no.
I'm going to pick Clarence Boddicker from RoboCop.
You probably don't think I'm a very nice guy, do you?
Buddy, I think you're slime.
See, I got this problem. Cops don't like me, so I don't like cops.
Okay.
If there was ever a nasty dude on film, it's Clarence Boddicker, because that guy is pretty repulsive, but he's charming at the same time. And one of the really cool things about him is he doesn't look like a bad guy. He's got a receding hairline. He wears some glasses. He's like skinny dude, but he is evil to the core.
He's played by Kurtwood Smith, who is most famous for that 70s show,
which is a strange, like, completely 180 role.
No, I don't think so, because if you watch that 70s show, he's kind of not far away from that character, actually.
Yeah, he's like that.
I mean, he's not a psychopath, but he's not very tolerant either.
Well, when he kills Murphy, you know something bad's about to happen, and the way he talks to him,
he's unsettling.
And when he does that, blows his hand off.
Yeah.
And then they just viciously murder him. And it's like nothing to him. Like, after a few minutes, he's like, okay, let's wrap this up. And then he finishes him off by shooting him in the head. And through the whole movie, I mean, he's very, and another thing too, he's very comfortable in his evil. And when he's hitting on the secretary, because he don't care. And then when he gets his at the end, it's a great moment.
He's a villain with swagger. He's got a lot of swagger to him.
I mean,
he takes it with his own style as he goes. He enjoys his work.
Yes, very much so. Like, you feel like he's a man who just said, you know what, I'm going to be an evil bastard. There's no backstory there.
No, he's just a psychopath that likes to party. And he likes to bring the party with him. And then shoot the party later.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a great movie, great villain, great, once again, a great protagonist to put him up against.
Yeah, it's such a cool movie. I'm ready for a RoboCop reboot. I'd like to see it done today. I know they're
making
original...
a sequel. No. They're making a sequel to the first movie.
I want to see... Well, I just want to see it today. I want to see what people can do with it today. I bet you it'd be great.
Well, didn't you... They did one a few years ago.
No, but
I think it was fine. I mean, it was nothing like the original, but it was definitely a different type of story. But I mean, the original RoboCop is its own thing. I mean,
sure.
It's almost pointless to try to recreate that.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's mine.
Cool.
It's a good one. Matt?
I'm going to throw a little curveball into this list here.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I am. I'm going to do it.
What the heck? What do you got?
Probably one of the most evil written characters of all time.
The details of my life are quite inconsequential.
Oh, no, please. Let's hear about your childhood.
Yeah, okay. Come on, please. Very well. Where do I begin? My father was a relentlessly self-improving boulangerie owner from Belgium with low-grade narcolepsy and a penchant for buggery. My mother was a 15-year-old French prostitute named Chloe with webbed feet. My father would womanize, he would drink, he would make outrageous claims like he invented the question mark. Sometimes he would accuse chestnuts of being lazy, the sort of general malaise that only the genius possess and the insane lament. My childhood was typical. Summers in Rangoon, luge lessons. In the spring, we'd make meat helmets. When I was insolent, I was placed in a burlap bag and beaten with reeds. Pretty standard, really. At the age of 12, I received my first scribe. At the age of 14, as a roastery named Vilma ritualistically shaved my testicles. There really is nothing like a shorn scrotum. It's breathtaking. I suggest you try it.
None other than Dr. Evil. Dr. Evil is a great movie villain because he is every stereotype, every archetype of the quintessential movie villain wrapped into one. He is evil for the purpose of being evil. He's bumbling. He's unbelievably played by Mike Myers. And he, to me, is one of the best parodies of all villains of all time in any movie.
I feel like he's more of a parody of a James Bond villain.
Well, of course he is, but the James Bond villains as themselves are so, in a sense, singularly dimensional in the sense that why are they so intent on being bad and doing this? You never really get motives. It's just they're doing it because they're evil. And that's where Dr. Evil is. There's no great motive. It's just to be evil.
Yeah, that's his name. Dr. Evil.
That was the first Austin Powers movie. I actually didn't like that much, but my favorite parts were definitely the Dr. Evil parts. Like those, like I almost didn't like Austin Powers. Like he kind of got on my nerves. But Dr. Evil, I mean, he was just so funny.
I don't know how serious you were taking that movie, but
I don't know. There was just something, but it just didn't strike the right chord with me. But I thought that Dr. Evil was really, really funny. But I thought they got better. I mean, I like the second and the third one.
My favorite line from him is when he drops all pretense and he's just being an exasperated parent.
Scott, you just don't get it, do you? You don't.
Because that's like something your parent would say to you. Like, Scott, you just don't get it, do you? I don't know why, but that always made me laugh. He was so exasperated that he just went into like parent mode.
Dr. Evil was just fun to watch. He's just everything that's supposed to be evil about a movie villain he had, and it was such a great parody. And so Dr. Evil, although a comedy character, I think he belongs in this list. I think he made his way. He made his way.
He finally got his frickin' sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to them.
And he got some redemption at the end.
Yeah, he did. He did. That's Dr. Evil. He's on my list, guys. Jared.
Good. Okay. My choice. I can't say I grew up with this villain, but he certainly has made an impact in the past several years. I'm talking about Thanos, the Mad Titan from the Marvel films.
With all 6 stones, I could simply snap my fingers. They would all cease to exist. I call that mercy.
And then what?
I finally rest and watch the sunrise on a grateful universe. The hardest choices require the strongest wills.
With Thanos, I think he's really only had 2 substantial appearances in the films. Now, I'm going to say here, I'm focusing on the film version of Thanos. I dipped my toe into Marvel Comics in the early 90s, so I knew who Thanos was, but I was by no means an expert, and most of what I'm taking to this list comes from the movies. So he's only really been in 2 of the films, and being Infinity War and Endgame. But he has been teased for years. And I think he loomed large starting in the Avengers from 2012. He did appear post-credits. A very different-looking Thanos was in that post-credits scene. But
before they cast
Josh Brolin.
Yeah.
So we saw him post-credits on Avengers, post-credits Age of Ultron, as played by Josh Brolin. And he had a small role in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Mm-hmm. But before Infinity War, that's really all we had seen him. But he loomed so large over almost every movie that had come out leading up to Infinity War. And then I thought he was brought to life very well in those movies.
An interesting character. He's one of those villains that I'm not saying you're sympathetic for, but it's that kind of point of view of evil, where in his point of view, he's approaching everything he does for the good of the universe. And although he is completely power hungry and power driven, his purpose in his mind is a noble purpose. And that's an interesting dynamic for him, and that's what kind of made him more than just a baddie, more than just the heavy coming in the movie. Mm-hmm. He had motivation, he had purpose, he had reasoning and explanation about why he's doing it.
And you saw in the beginning of Endgame, when they find him in his hut, even up to the moment before Thor kills him, he's still, I did the right thing.
Right, exactly.
I don't care. I fulfilled my purpose, and I don't care if I die.
He's the most dangerous kind of villain, because he's the one that believes wholeheartedly in his purpose, and it's laid out for you to hear. This is why I'm doing it, and you're not going to stop me. It's much more intimidating than just a random evil person doing random evil stuff. Yeah. You almost can put that better in your mind than to wrap your brain around how can this person or villain believe this so wholeheartedly. It's a scary concept.
That was the thing about Thanos. When, I saw Infinity War, I was surprised at the backstory that they kind of gave him. I thought he was just going to be like a heavy.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But to your point about his motivations, I mean, he's like a great allegory for villains of our history. People who had these, like, the stuff they did made total sense to them. They had a lot of charisma. They were able to talk other people into following, hey, come along. And then they did all this terrible stuff. But in their minds, this is what needed to be done.
Well, you guessed it. Bad things happen.
Yeah. Exactly.
In addition to all his motivations and his intellect, and they did present him as a very imposing figure. Just, at the beginning of Infinity War, he beats the crap out of the Hulk.
Yeah.
Which is a good way of establishing his, he kind of marked his territory there.
Let him have his fun.
Yeah, at the end of Endgame, he was also really mixing it up there.
Yeah, Thanos. But he's not scared to get in the mix and get in the fray.
It's a whole other conversation, but he was, he's completely he's a visual effect, which is pretty amazing, brought to life by Josh Brolin very well, and that's one that you just forget that you're watching an animated figure. I mean, you just buy it. So.
Oh man, I don't know how kids today will be able to go back and even enjoy movies from when we were kids. I mean, it's amazing what they get to watch these days. It's amazing what their video games look like. It's amazing what the movies look like. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're here. That's why we're on this mission. That's what the one and only podcast on the internet is all about.
We're here to help.
Teach them why they should appreciate.
You're going to teach them why Clash of the Titans looks cooler than Thanos. It doesn't. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, so that's mine. What do you got, Mike?
I'm gonna go with another Star Trek baddie. Krug, played by Christopher Lloyd, who was in Back to the Future.
Correct.
As Doc Brown.
Genesis, I want it.
Beam the Vulcan up, and we'll talk.
Give me what I want, and I'll consider it.
You fool, look around you. The planet's destroying itself.
Yes, exhilarating, isn't it?
If we don't help each other, we'll die here.
Perfect. Then that's the way it shall be.
But he's almost unrecognizable. Or I will say he is completely unrecognizable as Christopher Lloyd. He's another, I think accidentally picking him after Thanos, he's the same type of villain where in his mind he's doing exactly what is necessary. Like his motivation is based on the preservation of his race.
But it's so much more with Krug, because he's the best kind of Klingon. He's the opportunistic, power-hungry, gonna make a move Klingon, and he's gonna use that to get himself
looks for
higher.
trouble.
Yeah, it's great. Yes. He was so cool.
I think Star Trek 3 is a great movie that shows the culture conflict between the Federation and the Klingons, because I remember when Gene Roddenberry made The Next Generation, one of his concerns was with the Klingons, he had created an evil race. Well, I disagree with him on that. I don't think so. I think the Klingons had basically a different perspective. I'm not saying that they were right, but they're a highly paranoid race. They don't want to be dominated. And that was Krug's, concern. He finds out about the Genesis on face value, the Genesis is a pretty powerful weapon. I mean, it can destroy a planet. So he's concerned, rightly so. But I tell you, a great moment when you see that he's not pure evil. Like, he's a bad dude, but I don't know if you could say he's evil. Is, you know, when Kirk surrenders and he gives him, like, what, 2 minutes?
Give me a minute to inform my crew.
I give 2 minutes for you and your gallant crew.
And yeah, because he thinks, like, okay, I'm going to be merciful now. Then he turns it around at the end and has one of the great all-time villain deaths. When him and Kirk are fighting, and it shows the Krug actually has become mad because this planet is destroying itself, and Kirk is like, hey, we have to get out of here. And Krug's like, no, we're going to fight. So they're fighting.
If we stay here, we'll die.
This is a guy that has just murdered Kirk's son, who he just knew about, found out about, and just met. And Kirk tries to save him. And then Krug still is trying to fight him, and it has that great moment. I remember seeing this at the drive-in. We saw Star Trek 3 at the drive-in, and I remember this moment in the drive-in. I mean, it'll be burned in my brain for all time. When Kirk just starts kicking him in the face.
I have had enough of you!
And you really just want to get up and go, yeah! I mean, it's just such a great moment in the movie, and it just shows you what a great villain he was, because you just, like, were so happy when Kirk just finally went, you know what? That's it. I'm done. We're finished. I'm breaking up with you. It's over.
Yeah.
Krug was a lower level bird of prey captain. He wasn't higher up in the fleet. He saw an opportunity where he was going to take it, and he was going to get a superpower. And listen, you could make any assumption about what he would do with that power, whether he would use it against a Federation planet or even against his own planet, or hold the Klingons hostage to get power. He was on a mission. It started in the beginning of the movie, where the smugglers, where they had the information, and his romantic interest, his whatever she was to him, you could see he was upset and torn that he had to do his duty. But he still executed her right away. He was on a very covert secret mission that nobody knew about. It wasn't just about him preserving his race. He was doing a power grab, and he was an up-and-coming, aggressive Klingon, and he was going to take this, and he was going to make something big of himself. And that was amazing motivation, and it was cool, and nothing was going to stop him. I loved him. He was a great character.
Also, but he wasn't completely unreasonable. Like when they came up on the Grissom and he said, you know, disable, and the guy destroyed the ship. Yeah. And he got mad at the guy. Yeah. And he killed him with one of those awesome, you know, disintegrating rays that do it while they're alive and screaming. Yes. And he goes, animal. Or says it in Klingon, I believe. But, you know, what's really funny is, I'm sure, I don't know if you guys know this, I'm sure Jared does at least, where Nimoy specifically picked Christopher Lloyd, who at that time was well known for his role as Reverend Jim on Taxi. Right. And the studio was like, no, we're not casting Reverend Jim for the main villain. And Nimoy was like, are you really gonna do the typecasting thing with me?
Yeah, that's good.
So Nimoy he said, no, we're casting Christopher Lloyd.
One of the great roles of all Star Trek, of every role in Star Trek. One of the
There's
ones.
A few moments in that I love. Like, watch him when he says in Klingon, kill one of them. I don't care which. And he's so dismissive and like, I don't care. He just kind of shrugs and says, I don't care which. And then that's when David gets killed.
And Kirk has, oh my gosh, one of the best.
Yeah, Kirk's reaction to that, it's like...
It's heartbreaking.
Admiral, David is dead.
Klingon bastard, you killed my son. Oh. Klingon bastard, you've killed my son. You Klingon bastard.
filming that scene. I think it's in Shatner's book, but he trips backwards during that scene when that was not planned. He misjudged where the chair was and he fell. But
worked perfectly.
Nimoy left it in because you could not have done it better than that.
Yeah.
And it's very impactful.
He's a baddie. He's a good one.
That's why when people say that the only good Trek movies are the even ones are stupid.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
And
except
one
for
more
five.
thing.
Five's ridiculous.
You do take Christopher Lloyd's Bird of Prey, and in part 4 it becomes a time machine, and so Doc Brown did in fact captain.
Well, that's true.
The time traveling Bird of Prey.
He's the temporal constant of the universe, Christopher Lloyd.
What do you got, Matt?
I'm going to stick with the Star Trek universe. I'm going to drop a heavy one on you guys.
Oh, no. I think I know where we're going.
He tasks me. He tasks me, and I shall have him. I'll chase him round the moons of Nibia and round the Antares maelstrom and round perdition's flames before I give him up.
Khan, everybody. Khan! Khan, to this day, is still top 3, top 2. He might be my second favorite villain of all time.
I tell you what, Benedict Cumberbatch played the heck out of him. Just kidding. No,
Ricardo Montalban with his giant pectorals coming in, absolutely the best Star Trek role of all time, hands down. Christopher Lloyd might be up there, number 3. But Ricardo Montalban reprising his role as Khan was just the best. What a psychopathic, driven, angry juggernaut of revenge energy coming at Kirk. That was Star Trek 2 was the very first Star Trek movie I saw. I wound up seeing the motion picture later when I was a kid. I saw Star Trek 2 first. And I remember vaguely as a little kid watching on a rerun Space Seed, but I really didn't put 2 and 2 together until later on after I saw Star Trek 2. So Star Trek 2 to me was viewed almost in a vacuum as a little kid, and I think Star Trek 2 as a whole as a movie might be one of the top 10 best sci-fi movies ever made anyway.
Agreed.
Of course, yeah, without question.
From story to soundtrack to effects to the emotional aspect of it. Great movie. And Ricardo Montalban reprising Khan in that role was just a huge character.
Yeah, Harv Bennett bringing him back, because when Harv Bennett got the franchise, because they weren't happy with the motion picture, and they asked Harv Bennett to take it over, he went back and watched the original episodes, and he watched Space Seed, and he was like, this is our story. And, oh my gosh, I mean, when I saw that movie, Khan is scary. Like, he's a scary guy.
Oh.
Like he's scary.
The city eels right away.
Oof.
I mean,
what the heck?
Well, with the way they set him up, because I was familiar with Star Trek. I'd watched the show. I watched Star Trek the motion picture, but I had never seen Space Seed, didn't know anything about it. But when Chekhov realizes where they are, that's like the beginning of the setup, because Chekhov is in a panic.
Botany Bay. Oh no. We've got to get out of here now. Damn.
What about the
Never
cardboard?
mind it. Hurry.
Chekhov, what's the matter with you? Chekhov.
But Chekhov is in a panic, and you're like, uh-oh, because as an audience, you're like, even if you don't know, you're like, well, something's scaring the hell out of them. And then they have that great shot where they walk out and you see them all out in the sandstorm. He's a very different Khan in the movie, because in the original show, he's just someone, he's a really smart guy and he's trying to get a ship.
He's charismatic.
So he can do it.
Yeah.
In this one, he's insane.
Right.
But it's a quiet insanity.
And it's a great reveal too, him slowly stripping off the gear that he wears outside, from the headdress to the gloves, everything. He leaves the one glove
and the
on.
music that Horner is playing when all this, it's like it's just the perfect storm. I love the line too where he goes, "Did you never tell him the story to amuse your captain?" Like what Kirk did to him was like a joke in the Federation. Like Kirk would tell the story and laugh about it.
It's all his world.
Yes.
But when he hears that he's an admiral And it all flares up in that one look where he's like, he's had an unbelievably successful life, and look where I've wound up. And it just took all that revenge buildup and just exploded it into the mission.
And of course, at that point, I knew him. I had pretty much only knew him from Fantasy Island, and even knowing him as the likable manager of Fantasy Island, I mean, he right away you're just like, oh my gosh, this guy sucks. He's terrifying. I can't. Yeah. I don't want to be anywhere near this guy.
Yeah. And he, and then his very next scene is to drop worms, these horrific worms, into their ears.
Again, great music. That could you.
You guys obviously both know the trivia, but those listening might not. That Chekhov was not in the episode Space Seed.
No, he wasn't on the show yet.
He wasn't on the show.
Correct. So, but we used to make a joke that he saw him in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like,
hey, listen, he remembered everybody.
Your feet.
I never forget feet.
No, but he was just an evil guy, and he was blinded by revenge, and he had his wife that came from the Enterprise and decided to stay with him on Ceti Alpha 5. And he lost her, and the motivation.
This is Ceti Alpha 5.
Which, by the way, I'm side note here.
Yeah.
The Federation is pretty advanced, especially in their mapping technology. How in the world could you realize that you're on the wrong planet?
You lose a planet in 15 years.
I get it that the orbit.
Well,
shifted.
the orbits got disrupted.
Yeah, but I mean, let me tell you something. That would have to be an amazing shift to get it right in the orbit of Ceti Alpha 6.
Well, why didn't Chekhov just have them beamed up right?
How about
there
they're like, oh, hey, we're in the Ceti Alpha system. How about we not go here? Well, there's a real bad guy over there.
Ceti Alpha 6 exploded 6 months after. So in 15 years, I would assume 15 years after a planet explodes, there's still plenty of junk flying around somewhere. Like
gosh,
debris.
I don't know. I never thought about it.
All right, well, you've thought about it now.
It's such a good
our pioneers listening are thinking about it now, too. So when you rewatch that movie, ask yourself that kind of a...
Yeah, I don't care.
And then say, this whole movie doesn't make sense now. I'm
and just throw it away.
You're so...
No, but we could talk about Star Trek 2 and Ricardo Montalban's Khan all day long because he's such a great villain. So he's one of my big heavies on the list today.
All right, is this the last one?
I think he made everybody's list in some capacity.
Well, take your pick. Senator Palpatine, Chancellor Palpatine, Emperor Palpatine, or Darth Sidious.
Your feeble skills are no match for the power of the dark side. You had paid the price for your lack of vision. Skywalker, you will die.
The master of evil in the Star Wars films, the best chess player there ever was, and just one of the greatest bad guys ever committed to celluloid.
I agree, 100%.
I love democracy.
I love me some Palpatine. He's another character. He's evil. Just to be evil.
And, it's one of those. He's one of those characters that I still didn't feel after watching the prequels that I got enough of his backstory. I wanted more. He's always someone that I want more from. Like I felt satisfied with a lot of Star Wars characters and their arcs. I still wanted more. He's one of those guys.
Darth Plagueis.
Yeah, no,
Darth.
He always fascinates you, and you just want to know more about how he got where he was. He's just he's a timeless, great villain.
And I guess the story's not over yet.
I know. We still got one more go-round with old Palpy. Apparently in The Rise of Skywalker. But Ian McDiarmid, you cannot underestimate his contributions, especially to the prequels. I mean, he was like one of the shining stars in those films.
It's treason, then.
It's trees.
You know, it's really awesome the way it worked out, because they cast him for Jedi. He didn't originally play him in Empire,
no,
but they cast him in Jedi, and then he was obviously a younger man. And then when they make the prequels, they're able to bring him back,
and he's the correct age he's supposed to be.
Yeah, and you know, you cast him to play a bad guy, like pretty much a one-dimensional bad guy in Jedi, and it turns out he's a really great actor and can pull off like the multifacets of his character in the prequels. And of course, you know that he's Sidious.
Yeah.
And there was a guy I worked with, and he had seen it a second time, and he came up to me and he went, "Hey, you know what? Darth Sidious and Senator Palpatine are the same person." And I'm like,
who was this?
Yeah.
I mean,
who was this? Who said
Puyan?
Puyan thought that?
Yes.
Gosh.
I mean,
listen, okay. I thought his story was well done, and the fact that he came back for the prequels, it does flow very well from prequels to seeing him in Jedi. And I'm glad they refilmed his appearance in Empire with Ian McDermott, because it just makes sense.
Monkey-eyed thing.
Yeah, they use an old woman with chimp eyes, which, okay. Sure.
Yeah, a lot of choices back then. And to see him coming back in the new movie in whatever capacity they bring him, I can't wait. He's a supervillain. He's as bad as they came.
He translated well into the Clone Wars show. Yeah, they really.
They did a good job with
expanded on him there.
Yeah,
one of my favorite moments is still when he decides to. He's had enough of Darth Maul. That's one of my favorite moments in Clone Wars, where he's like, "Go get my shuttle."
Yeah, he's like, "Okay,"
and you're like, "Well, Maul's done."
Yeah, I've had enough of this. Maul and his brother. This has got to stop.
And the way he manipulated Anakin, I mean, he just had his number, man.
He knew. Really freaky with a lightsaber with all the weird noises that he makes.
It's treason, then.
That's like the best start. The best stuff with it. No. You must die. No.
Super choice.
He's Darth Vader's boss, so who's badder than him?
That was some of our favorite movie and TV villains. We got a lot more to talk about with villains. We'll be every now and then giving you a little more of our list. But we'd like to share with you, and we'd love you to share with us.
Yeah, share with us if we missed one, and we know we did.
And is my list the worst of the lists?
Mike, your lists aren't the worst. They're your lists. Own them. Love them.
And that concludes another episode of The Hyperspace. A very dark and scary episode full of a lot of crazy villains.
But don't worry. We're going to get you through this. In the 25th century, we'll make it all right.
Don't be afraid. We're here with you.
You know you can't live without this content, so subscribe to The Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century. Follow us on social media. Leave us a review. And join us here next time as we take you into the 25th century.